So Ursula, you are a solicitor and head of disputes and litigation here at EMG. Tell me a bit more like what what the day involves. What does that role look like for you?
Well, it's all sorts of different things. That's what I love about litigation, because it's always a different story. And so for me, that's the kind of law I really like to get my teeth into, because every company's trajectory is different. Every individual's story is different. Of course, people come to you to solve problems. So you get right in among the nitty-gritty of their situation, their lives, right from the beginning. And so it's different every day. That's what I really like.
And how would you describe, what's keeping you busy at the minute? Whether like with the pandemic in mind, or, the way the world is at the minute?
I think we're pretty much business as usual. People still fall out with each other. People still need to have lawyers' help. I mean, it's always a bit of a failure in a way when you need to come to a lawyer, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help with the problems. So the pandemic hasn't really affected litigation. Right at the beginning, everybody was a bit quiet and didn't want to get involved in instructing us necessarily, because it was like a great collective holding your breath, wasn't it? Like, oh, this is new territory. Yeah. What's going to happen now? But it's been going on so long. I think everyone is very much.
We've adapted.
We've adapted, haven't we? Yeah.
And in terms of civil litigation, so kind of tell me a little bit about your role looking at cases to do with civil litigation.
So we do, in the team, we do a wide range, and litigation is always a wide-ranging sort of thing. So we do a lot of focus on land disputes. We do disputes, probate disputes about people who have died. We do company disputes, shareholders. I'm a mediator. We do things that involve mediation. And then we have an employment team, which is part of litigation as well. So we have quite a range of different sorts of things that we get involved in.
And I suppose with such a broad mix, would you say there is a right time for somebody to get in touch?
We always like to see people sooner rather than later. But I know all lawyers say that, and all clients think, oh, you know what, I just don't really want to go to that level just yet. And that's a very, very natural feeling. You think, well, I'm just going to see if I can make some headway about this. We never mind giving a quick bit of advice. Yeah. Sometimes a quick bit of advice at an early stage can
go a long way.
Saves you a lot of money, might save you aggravation, stress, hassle further down the line. But equally, sometimes you need to take the time to work out what it's all about, what matters to you, what matters to your company or to your situation. You can't always settle things. You can't always get things right at the beginning.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of kind of thinking about the work you do as head of disputes, what are some common triggers that might kickstart some of these, let's say, business disputes?
Okay, so the common thing is that you get a letter of claim from the other side that you're having a dispute about the supply of some goods, or about the repair of some commercial machinery, or about commercial lease premises potentially, and you've maybe had a meeting with the director on the other side and it went badly. Lo and behold, you get a solicitor's letter. Yeah. So that's really a good time to consult us.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be then, can be earlier, can be later, so that's a trigger. When things start going, when you have a sense that things are starting to go wrong, often that happens when somebody moves in the other company. There's a change of personnel, something's different, your tried and tested relationships that you've always had. Oh, well, I always just ring up so-and-so in purchasing and he sorts it out for me.
Why wouldn't you do the same?
So-and-so isn't here anymore and we're not doing it like that.
Oh.
That's a flag. Experienced business people are very, very savvy to this sort of thing. They're very quick to think, something not right here.
We need to get some professional support.
And sometimes, of course, the whole process of business negotiation involves a bit of pushback and a bit of tongue-in-cheek kind of things on either side. You're trying to get a good deal for your company. So people quite often aren't thinking in a legal term at all when they're doing that. When they're in that negotiating mode. They might exaggerate things a bit. Both sides know what's going on. It's spotting the incident pit where you suddenly, that negotiating, informal discussion where everybody knows what the rules are. Like, I'm going to big up my company and you're going to big up your company, and we're not going to really look at the fine detail of it too much. That kind of, you need to be aware of where that crosses over into doing something that has a legal consequence. So ring your lawyer before you do anything that has a legal consequence. I wish, well, no, if everyone did that, then we could all go home at lunchtime.
Yeah, good point. That is a good point. And we've talked a little bit about businesses. What about areas like disputes over wills? You know, it's such an emotive topic. You know, how do you guide clients through that?
It's so difficult. It is so emotional. And the really sad thing that we sometimes see is we see people who are trying to put right their relationship with the deceased person. It's too late for that. Yeah. They're trying to run these arguments through challenging a will, through legal processes, when the time for that has gone. And it can be very sad. It's very sensitive. It's also an area where you see everybody at their absolute best and their absolute worst. Yeah. You see people who are really in it for what they can get, and you also see people who are very, very genuine. And of course, grief exacerbates all that, doesn't it? Yeah. Grief makes everybody not quite their right self.
No, it's like time within time, isn't it? It's almost like things aren't linear anymore. And I guess from a communication perspective, it must be difficult for you if you're dealing with, you know, family members who are a bit either at war, or even that extreme emotion where, you know, one person just, I can't, this is too much to handle this.
Well, that's what we're there for. We're there to be a sounding board, to tell people which arguments we can fight and which arguments we can't. You know, I'm a litigator. I will, you know, go to war for anybody, but it's also part of my job to say, this is a really good argument, but you know what, this part of it, it's really upsetting for you, but the judge isn't going to want to listen to this. And so that's part of our role, really, is to sift a bit, to be an independent pair of eyes and ears, to say, you know, I'm on your side, and the best way to get a good outcome for you is to go down this road. But at the end of the day, it's the people's own dispute, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm never offended if someone says to me, you know what, Ursula, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Because it's not my life, it's their life.
Yeah, and you're there to give advice, aren't you? Another big one I'm thinking of is disputes between neighbours. You know, the dreaded, you've put your fence too high, or you've changed our fence, or you're noisy between the hours of whatever. Tell me a little bit about sort of disputes between neighbours, because I'm sure we're all wondering.
Yeah. I know a barrister who says that if you're in a dispute with a neighbour, what you should do, this is his legal advice, I'd seen him give it to a client, you should sell your house. Yeah. But actually, it's so difficult, a dispute with your neighbour, because they're right next door next to you. They get right under your skin. And the law isn't a good way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
You know,
because it's people.
Yeah. Legal processes. And even if you go to court and you win and you get most of your costs back and you get an order that the fence be taken down or the buddleia gets cut back or the whatever you're looking for, you're going to get up the next morning. You still have to be next door to those people.
Yeah, you've still got to bring your bin in, you know, at the same time as them.
Exactly. And now they hate you.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, well, you probably hate each other. So it's not an area where the law has really good tools. One of the things I do is a pro bono role is that I do some neighbourhood mediation. And that's something a lot of retired lawyers do, really. We go out and talk to people as mediators and try and find some solutions. And sometimes there are really simple things. I'm really fed up because next door's teenagers come home late at night and they knock on the wrong door. Well, maybe we could put the signage for the houses a bit clearer. You know, sometimes they're just really, really practical things, which again, none of that's law. It's to do with
really important in terms of changing, you know, the mood. And it's interesting what we were just thinking about there when you were saying about with neighbours is during the pandemic, lots of people started sort of groups, didn't they? You know, neighbourhood messaging groups or WhatsApp. And I wonder whether that's, for some people, helped make your job or your life a little bit easier. A lot of the scrapping's done.
Well, the trouble is then you get people coming into the office with a hard drive or a memory stick full of the WhatsApp group messages. What we definitely did see some cases of pandemic rage.
Right.
And that's definitely a thing. So
right.
we definitely...
You heard it here first.
Yeah, we definitely have seen some cases where people have just lost their anything. Yes. And it's because of the stress we've all been under. People are just by themselves in the house. They're stewing about whatever it is that they're angry about. They may be right to be angry.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. And I suppose you've got some really weird and wonderful anecdotes. Is there one you could share?
Well, I guess I did have a case once that had parrots in it and macaws and a ghost. But I can't tell you too many details.
That's enough. I think that sounds brilliant.
I can tell you about the ghost because it was in the witness statements, but I can't tell you the details of the case, I'm afraid.
Don't you worry.
But it goes back to what I was saying about every case is different,
Yeah. So in terms of your day-to-day, going back to what you do at work and who you do it with, you also provide employment support, don't you, to employers or employees?
Yeah.
What's that like? What does that aspect of your role involve?
So that's my colleague Graham Shannon, who runs the employment side of the team, and he advises employers and employees. It's a very, very specialist field because it changes all the time. There's always new law.
Yeah.
It's really important. I started my legal life as a trade union rep, and this is how I became a lawyer, because I went to a trade union training conference, and this involved, this is before I was a lawyer, when I was quite a young person, and learning to be a trade union lawyer seemed to involve drinking a lot of whiskey. So this is how I got into the law in the first place. It's something where the technical law is really important, but also the relationship of the employer and employee is fundamental to so many people's lives. It's fundamental to your happiness, to your well-being at work.
I think you raised such a good point, and actually you've got me thinking about sort of being at work. And so, with your role here at EMG, how would you say your values align with the values of the company? What keeps you here? What do you enjoy about your job?
It's great working here because I know that all my colleagues, we all have the same emphasis and the same direction. We have a strong corporate responsibility policy. And that sounds like something that you see on someone's website, doesn't it? Yeah. We have a strong corporate... But really what it means is everybody wants to give back into our own community.
And they do.
And we do. And we work with our chosen charities. We work with, local hospices. We try and carry that over into how we work in our lives with our clients. So the law, a lot of people hate lawyers, and a lot of people have reason to hate lawyers. We're not all nice. If you were on the other side from me in a litigation dispute, you might think, oh my goodness, that Ursula, what a terrible person. No, you would. I'm supposed to be like that.
But it's good that you can straddle both sides.
Yeah, but it means that in our work at EMG, we're all trying to be non-discriminating, to be fair to each other, to be kind. And I love working somewhere where that's explicit, because a lot of law firms don't have that anywhere in the headline,
Yeah, or they might have, it might be sort of low down in the website
everyone
text.
says that they have good values and strong this and that, but actually at EMG we try and put our money where our mouth is, which is unusual, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.